Welcome back, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions. Because Stargate SG-1 as a series is a direct sequel to the events of the 1994 movie, when we pan in on a rooftop with a man gazing through his telescope at the star-filled sky, we know we are seeing a man who walked amongst those stars and didn't expect to return trip. He left behind a man who became his friend and lied to protect him, saying that he had died. This is the core of who Jack O'Neill is. A man who is deeply affected by his long past as a soldier, a grieving father, a loyal friend, and someone who disobeys orders when his moral compass demands it. His favorite TV show is The Simpsons, which has a long history of offering social commentary through the microcosm of the people in the town of Springfield, and his is a character full of intellectual and emotional intelligence who uses sarcasm as a coping mechanism. He pretends to be less intelligent than he is, so that people don't expect too much from him. He has a hard time letting people in because of the number of people he has lost in the past, which is why the bond he forms with the other members of SG-1 is even more powerful as we see it play out over the course of the series. The early episodes of the show portray Jack O'Neill as someone with a few close friends and deep trust issues, famously reacting to the introduction of Sam Carter.
Oh, here we go. Another scientist. General, please.
But at the same time, he has a pervasive sense of right and wrong and reacts strongly and immediately to any perceived injustice, which, if you put any faith in such things, is typical for someone who is a Libra. But why the layers of sarcasm? Why the performative ignorance? To understand Jack's trajectory across 8 seasons, we have to look at the twin pillars of his trauma: his history as a prisoner of war and the devastating loss of his son, Charlie. We get our first hints of his Black Ops baggage early on. In Solitudes, when Jack and Sam are unknowingly sent through the Antarctic Gate, she is talking to him, trying to keep him distracted as she splints his broken leg. He reveals he has a parachuting mishap over the border of Iraq and Iran, which broke several bones and resulted in skull fractures. When she asks how long before he was rescued, he indicates it wasn't exactly an official mission. Later, in Season 2's Prisoners, Jack's immediate tactical adaptation to a brutal alien penal colony hints at a man who has been locked in dark rooms before, and this is confirmed in A Matter of Time, when the arrival of Frank Cromwell forces Jack to confront a horrific past chapter, being held in an Iraqi prison for 4 months because Cromwell thought he was dead and left him behind. Jack uses his simple airman persona as a tactical shield. If your enemies and your superiors underestimate your intellect, they never see you coming. But while the military broke his body, it was a tragedy at home that broke his spirit. Cold Lazarus is where the series gives the background details on Jack O'Neill's tragic past, and it is a feature, not a bug, of this episode that these emotional reveals are done when an alien is emulating his body and operating with only the strongest of his memories. This crystalline alien entity, upon realizing he injured O'Neill, attempts to heal him, but doesn't understand that Jack's deepest wounds are psychological and not physical. The Stargate project wasn't just a mission for Jack in the beginning, it was a long, bureaucratic form of suicide. In Children of the Gods, we see a different man from the one who went to face Ra on Abydos.
It's O'Neill, with 2 L's. There's another Colonel O'Neill with only 1 L. He has no sense of humor at all.
But it is when he faces his grief through this copy that Jack begins the agonizingly slow process of choosing to live again. Because Jack cannot heal his own past, we see him channel that protective, fatherly instinct into the universe around him. Look at Learning Curve. When SG-1 encounters the Ubanans, a culture that overfills and then culls the brains of their children for knowledge, Jack completely unhinges from the chain of command. He kidnaps a little girl named Marin just to show her what it means to actually be a kid. He clearly spends his spare time volunteering with children back on Earth because when he looks at these kids, he sees the childhood Charlie never got to have, and when he takes Marin to the school, all the kids there recognize him and greet him enthusiastically. We see it again in Pretense. His fierce, uncompromising bond with Skara isn't just about interstellar diplomacy, it's Jack refusing to let another son be taken from him. But he's self-aware enough to recognize that even though he downplays his own intelligence, he doesn't have the background to execute this diplomatic maneuver when such high stakes are on the line, and he and Daniel represent Skara as a team before the Tolan in Triad. The arguments are Daniel's, but delivered with O'Neill's passion and desire to see justice for Skara. This protective instinct defines his strict moral compass. Jack O'Neill has zero tolerance for absolute authority or moral compromise. In Season 4's The Other Side, when Stargate Command begins a tentative alliance with a technologically advanced race called the Urondans, the team is initially thrilled by this tactical advantage. But the moment Jack realizes the Urondans are ideological purists, space Nazis engaged in genetic cleansing, he shuts it down. He uses their drone bombers to attack their own fighters, and leaves their world to burn because an alliance built on genocide is no alliance at all. And if anyone made the mistake of thinking his morality was naivete, Jack shows us in Shades of Grey that he knows how to play dirty. He orchestrates a massive ruse, pretending to go rogue and alienating his entire team just to infiltrate and dismantle a rogue NID tech theft ring. And in Chain Reaction, when General Hammond is forced out of command by political corruption, Jack doesn't write a letter to his congressman. He teams up with his mortal frenemy, Harry Mayborn, leveraging blackmail, rogue espionage, and sheer intimidation to get his general back. And even with all of that, his ultimate test of endurance doesn't happen on Earth. It happens in Ball's gravity torture chamber. In Abyss, Jack is captured, killed, and resurrected by the System Lord Ball over and over again. This is the distillation of every prior experience he had as a prisoner. Stripped of his weapons, his team, and his body, all Jack has left is his sarcasm and his core identity. When Daniel Jackson appears as an ascended being and offers him a way out through ascension, Jack refuses. Why? Because ascension requires letting go of his attachments, and Jack would rather endure hell as a mortal loyal to his friends than escape into the stars as a god who turns his back on them. Perhaps the definitive thesis statement on Jack O'Neill exists in the legendary episode Window of Opportunity. Trapped in a loop for months, he uses the endless time to learn ancient languages, master golf, and kiss Sam Carter. It's hilarious. But the climax pivots on a dime to absolute tragedy, when the alien scientist Malachi admits he's looping time just to see his deceased wife one more time. And Jack snaps.
I know what it's like.
You can't! I lost my son! I know!
In that one raw, screaming moment, the facade drops entirely. Jack has carried that weight every single second of the series, and it's that human connection that finally gets Malachi to shut down the ancient device.
And as much as I could never live that over again. Could you?
At the end of Season 7, when we are desperately trying to find anything to help us fight Anubis, Jack willingly has the repository of ancient knowledge downloaded into his brain for a second time, and ultimately must be placed in stasis to avoid long-term neurological damage from simply having too much information in his head. He makes the sacrifice and fights for Earth's very survival, knowing the consequences that await him. Which brings us to Season 8's New Order Part 2. When offered the promotion to Brigadier General and the command of the SGC, Jack is hesitant. Taking that desk means stepping away from the front line, away from the gate, and away from SG-1. But more importantly, it means accepting the ultimate responsibility. He will now be the one sending people out with the knowledge they might not come back.
I've spent my whole life sticking it to the man. If I do this, I'll be the man. I don't think I can be the man.
The man who stepped through the Stargate in 1994, hoping to find a good place to die, is not the same man who finally accepts the promotion in 2004. Because he's gone on such a personal journey, and is the only one who truly understands the cost of living. He started his journey alone on a roof, looking at the stars with a broken heart. He ends it in the command chair, having built a found family, saved the galaxy, and proved that behind the jokes, the sarcasm, and the baseball caps was the beating heart of a true hero. Please do all those delicious things that feed the almighty algorithm, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!